You know how sometimes playing games, it feels really familiar. You sit down, you put your hands on the keyboard and mouse, you know, which buttons do what, and it just intuitively happens. Yes, there's a tutorial there and it teaches you things, but for the most part, you know what to do. And it's a pretty easy game to play. Well, X4 Foundations is not that. X4 Foundations is the complete opposite of that, where literally the first hour and a half to 2 hours of the game is acquiring a bachelor's in X4 Foundations so that you can go off and actually play the game for real. At first, I was pretty overwhelmed and it was pretty daunting, but once I got into it, there was something special about it. There was something unique that I don't think I have experienced in any other game. Today we'll talk about my first, 5 or 6 hours or so of game time and give you a little bit of an introduction and a taste as to what you're going to expect playing this game. In particular, if you're coming here because it's on special or you were just curious about it. Well, buckle up, buckaroos. You're going to find out all about this game and see if it is for you. So let's start with the obvious question. What is X4 Foundations? Well, first and foremost, it's a single player game. To alleviate any confusion, there is nothing multiplayer about X4 Foundations, nor do I believe there are plans to make any multiplayer interaction. What I really like about this game is just how intricately everything is connected in this simulated environment. Not delivering goods to certain systems or sectors, or not helping factions in a certain way. You can literally crash the economy, stop particular products from being created, start these wars between factions, make one faction stronger than the other to take over the other one, and this all happens within your save file specifically. Nothing is preordained or planned or destined. There's a whole host of things that just cause domino effects, and you're part of this, and you can be a really big part of this if you want to. It is a simulation, as self-described. It simulates a universe and everything is intertwined. You explore, you manage, you build empires, the empires collapse. There's a whole host of things that you can actually do in this game. But in its core, when you're starting off and you're trying to figure out what to do, in particular in that first 5 to 6 hours, you're mostly relegated to your own little spaceship in your own little side of the corner of the world, where you're probably going to be flying it around and doing missions and getting some money so that you can essentially start to grow an empire and build something that is of worth or value in this large sandbox that you call home. Part of this is ensuring you have good visibility on what's going on around you, in particular when it comes to trading goods, military factions and what they may be up to, missions that are on offer, both legal and illegal. You can go around, you can pilot, you can trade, you can explore, fight, mine, whatever you want really. And there are a couple of pre-written paths you can go down, but for the most part, if you wanted to, you could literally undock, shoot the station you came from, become enemies with everyone around you and live a pirate life, if you should choose to do so. I would say that that's probably starting the game off in a very hard mode, in particular when you're starting off in a little tiny vessel. However, it's not impossible, and that's what I really do like about it. You do start off in this tutorial, I guess. The tutorial is more like an academy, believe it or not. It's got its own menu and it teaches you all the core mechanics and all the core gameplay and how it all works and how it all operates. I did actually find in the beginning that you could stop what you were doing in the main game and go back to this tutorial, revisit chapters that you might have forgotten, I don't know how to do this or I don't know how to do that. I really did appreciate that feature because the amount of times where I just forgot what a button did or what I was meant to do to scan scan a station, or even how to mine, it did help. It actually did help. Outside of that, it's really up to you. Really up to you what you do. At the crunch of it, for those who are here to just get it out of the way, do I recommend X4 Foundations personally? Yes, I do, because I do enjoy these types of games. They are generally my pace in terms of taking your time, understanding systems, understanding things that are put in front of you from a wider lens than just pew pew bang bang, which is, I know what some of you are after out there, and I have no problem with those games. I enjoy those games as well, but there's a time and a place. I do enjoy taking the time to methodically understand how a system works and some of the ways to interact with it to make it work in your favor. So if you enjoy strategy, if you enjoy thinking, if you enjoy a slower pace, and in particular, if you enjoy sci-fi, then X4 Foundations is going to be something that you're probably going to want to have a look at some point in your sci-fi space gaming journey. Outside of that, what is it akin to? You know, what sort of other games are out there that you might be able to relate to? There's a couple actually. The main one that you'll hear over and over again is Elite Dangerous, and there's a reason for that. Elite Dangerous is a staple of the piloting genre, in particular the space piloting genre. I believe, I don't play with the HOTAS, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe the HOTAS community, Hand on Throttle and Stick, are very much behind games like X4 and Elite because it allows for them to go out there and fly these spaceships with the HOTAS controllers. I'm personally playing X4 in particular on a keyboard and mouse. However, I play Elite Dangerous with an Xbox controller, so go figure. I mean, it's horses for courses. I find keyboard and mouse works really well for the game like X4 because it allows for me to do a whole bunch of things. One thing in particular is the autopilot feature that I heavily rely on X4 Foundations, as opposed to flying the ship manually on Elite Dangerous. That said, it's open for interpretation. You can do whatever you want. So from a piloting perspective, Elite Dangerous is probably the best game that I can compare it to. From a grand strategy perspective, there's two games come to mind straight away. The first one is Stellaris, believe it or not. Just from moving your ships around the map and getting them to do things like trading and picking up things. If you don't know, Stellaris is a space-related grand strategy game. Very, very popular, and it's something that a lot of 4X gamers love. In fact, I wonder if X4 is 4X backwards for a reason. And this is going to probably be a weird one. Not a lot of people are going to get it, but there comes a point where you can build stations and start creating like these intricate production sort of facilities that you can bring in trade goods from to build goods and sell them off. EVE Online. EVE Online has this system and it worked really well. Anyone who's played EVE Online like me, completely addicted to it for 3+ years and now is a bit of veteran, you will completely know what I'm talking about, particularly when it comes to manufacturing gameplay and supply chain. So what a weird combination. You've got Stellaris, EVE Online, Elite Dangerous, all packaged into one neat little game for you to spend probably the better part of an hour reading into Wikipedia-like articles on how to play the game. But trust me, if you like that, and if you enjoy the outcomes at the end of that, you'll probably like this game. I hope I can get these messages out quickly in a video, in particular for those who are interested, so that you can essentially see if the game's for you in a bite-sized way. So what can we do in X4? There's quite a bit. We already talked about piloting. So piloting is definitely a core component of gameplay, flying around doing different things across the solar system. Trading is definitely a big part of gameplay as well. Don't undercut it. A lot of the early money you make can be done through trading and crafting. You can go get goods and craft goods in your own inventory outside of crafting them in big space stations that you'll eventually get to go and build, which is the next part of the gameplay, building. You can go and build space stations and manufacturing facilities. Exploration is another key part, very much a staple of part of the sci-fi genre. Go and find planets, go find people, go chat to them, see what they're up to. Why are they looking a bit shifty there in the bar of the station? That's a bit of a hint there for you. That could lead to fighting. You can go and shoot them down and say, "G'day mate, I'm just here to give your ship a bit of a tickle with my guns." Now I don't recommend that straight away unless they're criminals. Unless you want to be a criminal yourself, which is completely okay. It's a simulation, you know? Mining, if you're so into that. In fact, I did pick up one of these mining missions, which was pretty cool. Then it taught me that asteroids have crystals on them, and those crystals have dodgy things that you can go and craft into things like space caviar. That was very interesting to get that out of some mining gameplay. And the last three things you can really do is you can go and steal. So you can go and say, hello, hello, look the other way while I put my hands in your pocket and take some of this loot for myself. You can go command your armies to do your dirty work for you. So you can go and recruit aliens from stations. And then last but not least, there is an immense amount of strategy involved in just looking at menus. If you liked trading stocks and if you like looking at the cost of commodities and tanking markets, I think you can do that in X4. There's literally graphs and logs and whatnot that if it so interests you, you can run you can run a gameplay loop where you're Warren Buffett as an example. There's so many things you can do. Now, what did I get to explore mostly? A bit of mining, a bit of piloting, a bit of trading. You'll do that in your first 5 hours of play. Do that on your first save. You'll probably only do that finishing your first campaign. And that's fine, because that's fun enough. Once you've done all of that, I think you open the door later to do some of these other things and do it in a different way. And maybe go and do your first campaign as a pirate instead of just, you know, a little pilot trying to make some script. Egosoft has done a great job with this title, I have to say. For the audience it's catering to and the type of game it is, it's hit the genre and the nail on the head. And I think there's a reason why it stands as testament to the genre. There's a reason why it's got a massive fan base. And for all the reasons I outlined before, there's a lot of positivity behind the game. Are there any negativities? Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, no game is perfect. I'll give you the first one straight off the bat. The first thing that I was hit with as an absolute issue and just a brutal way of coming to terms with how this game works. There is a limited autosave function, if you like to call it that. It doesn't save in crucial moments like jumping between systems or getting to the start or the end of an autopilot route. Autosave happens, I don't know. I don't even know how it works, but it happens infrequently. What that means is you might be completely enthralled in playing the game, you're doing a whole bunch of things, and you make a tiny little mistake of shooting a ship that you weren't meant to shoot. Well, guess what, buddy? If you hadn't pressed F5, which is the quick save button, and your last save was, I don't know, 40 minutes ago, for some reason or another, you're most likely going to lose to those ships that you shot. Your ship gets blown up, you're floating in space. There's nothing you can really do to salvage from this situation unless you really want to wait a long time. Even if you send your own ships to come save you, you're probably not going to have a good time. Those ships, you're going to lose those ships as well. And there goes hours of progress down the drain, in particular if you're following the campaign or the story. And there's moments like this. There's moments where the game just doesn't tell you and you just figure it out. It's kind of like playing a roguelike. You're following the campaign mission. One of the missions is, all right, we're going to go get them back now. Go blow their ships up. And you go and you're outgunned. There's no way you're going to win that one. And if you haven't pressed F5, you need to reload from an hour plus ago. That's a lot of progress to be lost, particularly if you're time poor and you didn't know that the game didn't save that way and you didn't know that it was brutal. Egosoft does not hold your hand. It really reminds you of this game being a simulation and you needing to learn everything before you go and engage. Now, that is definitely a negative, but the positive to that is once you do learn from your own mistakes, you end up playing the game so much better. And I do like that aspect of it. I just wish it wasn't behind a, well, you got to go back an hour save wall. Let's call it the save wall. So what did I do? I basically, every time I was about to do something silly or didn't know what I was doing, I pressed F5. But I learned the hard way, and I'm sure everyone who's played this game has gone through this pain. Outside of that, scaling, UI, everything is good. I do have to say, I don't like the camera options that are presented for a game like this. There's some cool things like being able to go into remote cameras to see what's going on around the universe. But in particular, the piloting camera, that's something that took me time to adjust to. The reason why is the HUD doesn't adjust when you go to an external view of your ship. It just kind of stays in the middle of your screen and it kind of breaks a little bit of that immersion, but you can just hide the HUD if you just want to see your ship flying around in space. Last thing I would probably mention in terms of a negative, I'm sure there's more out there, but these were the ones that really stuck with me. The last one was learning the menus. The menus have so many icons, so much text, a lot to basically take in and remember. And I think this is fair. It can be simplified a little. In particular, like getting a UI or a UX designer in to reimagine some of these menus to make them a bit more, not only aesthetic, but functional and flow a bit better would definitely take this game a long way. It's just my opinion. Again, some people might hate me for saying that and think it's right just the way it is. In fact, all of these things are just my opinion. I know that there's going to be a mixed response to some of the things I say, and that's fine. I appreciate it. I do appreciate it if I've missed something and someone points it out. Alrighty, so let's cap it off. X4 Foundations, do I recommend it? Yes. Is it going to be everyone's cup of tea? Absolutely not. What are some of the good things going for it? It hits space simulation overall. It hits all the right notes when it comes to space simulation overall. What are some of the negatives about it? It's not a quick game. You don't just pick it up and play it and get some dopamine. It takes a long time to get used to it. So if you have the patience, you have the willpower, you have the skills, you have the stomach for it, then pick it up and give it a go.